Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your professor today as I look at 1992-93 NBA hoops. This set was a transitional year between the really weird year of 1991 and the 1993 model that they would use moving forward. The first 2 years that Hoops made cards, they came up with a very particular design, and they were able to use it in two different ways, in the 89 set and the 90 set. And this worked beautifully for the company. It was a very clear identity that they had, great looking cards, and instead of trying to rehash it in some way in 1991, they decided to go in a different route, and they made a super boring card. How they got to that design in 1991, I will never know. And I probably don't want to know because it would probably bring me to tears. But it just wasn't a model moving forward. They had to figure out some way to take a card that was about the most uninspired and common looking card possible and turn it into something that actually had an identity. And rather than reinvent the wheel, they decided to tweak it. But for the 1992 card, they did create a card that is one of the most distinct cards that you're going to find, simply because within the confines of a white border, they added some interesting elements that could only happen on this card. They have a strip down one side, and the strip kind of fuzzes out part of the image. Otherwise, the image runs from border to border, and then on that strip, they have team color letters for the player's name. Then down below, of course, they have the team logo, and they have a strip running across with a really strong, bold color theme for the team. This provided some really interesting components that actually pull you in and make the card distinct. They have a strip down the side, and why in the world would anybody do this? I don't know, but the strip actually does look kind of interesting. As bold and obnoxious as the white border is, the strip acts as a good counterpoint that creates a strange interest that intrigues the viewer. And at the same time, it allows the picture to run behind so the picture feels much larger than it actually is. And yet the picture itself is still focused on the clear area on the side. So they were able to pull off a couple of different elements at the same time, while also having a strong color theme for the team, which gives you everything that you need on the card to make what is otherwise an incredibly boring card actually really kind of interesting. But as interesting as it is, the one flaw that it still has is it still has that white border for some reason, and that would always hold the card back from whatever it could potentially be. They'd have to get rid of it, and they would. But for 1992, they did not. On top of that, the card back was also scaled back a little bit from the previous year. And I don't know why. It's interesting to say that the 91-92 card back was actually a little bit better than the 92-93 card back, but you can't win all of your battles. But the images that they used in this set actually tended to be pretty good images. They read really well within the whole card, which is the point of having a big image area. So they definitely succeeded at that. Now the set is broken down into teams and alphabetical order within each team. So it starts off with Atlanta and moves its way through Washington. This was a tradition that they were continuing with from their first or the second set in 1990. And then they also followed up with coaches. Again, they did the same thing as in the previous years. Coach cards look the same as the regular player cards. And then, like in the previous year, they do have AllStar cards that are done as a subset after the player cards as opposed to before the player cards, which had been the 1990 model. And in this set, the cards are done in a really distinct way because the background behind the player, so the background of the image, is a single tint. And the single tint is a team color for whichever team they're on. So there's the West, and then you also have the East. They both have their own individual tints, which makes the whole team seem kind of cohesive. And yet what's kind of interesting about it is that on an individual basis, the players they come through very strong, very bold. There's a large amount of contrast on the images, which allows on a single basis for each one of these players to come through strong on their card. When you put it together on a page, they kind of disappear because the backgrounds become a little bit too strong. But it's otherwise a really cool model they came up with, and it looks good. Then they have their team cards, and the team cards are This kind of takes the same inspiration as the AllStar cards. So they have a really good shot of of the team in some, usually kind of like a sideline fashion. And then they have a background image that's all a single color for the team. The cards are bold, and another way to describe them is bold, and you could also describe them as bold. And they actually do look kind of cool. But on the card back, these are not team checklists. These are team cards basically kind of appraising how the team itself had done during the season. And then they have a subset of league leaders. And for these league leaders, they have the 2 league leaders on each card. And it's, basically the number 1 and the number 2. And the way that the card is balanced on this 2-panel card shows that the idea that they had for the model actually works really well when you do the 2-panel, because the grayed out areas on the side, that actually acts as a great counterpoint. So each side has a really strong presence, and it reads well on these cards, a lot better than on the main cards. They also did a tribute to Magic Johnson because he was retiring. Don't worry, we're never going to see him on the basketball court again. It's not going to happen. And so they put together a small subset of cards that were basically looking at his career. It was not a huge in-depth look, but a couple of cards that just kind of celebrate the career that he had had. Then they had a couple of minor subsets, which was something they'd been doing. They had their inside stuff cards, same as before. The strong purple color, that's just kind of the thing that these cards go with, which looks really good. Here, I really love the strip on the sides simply because for the quirky nature of these cards, the way that these pictures are not normal sports shots, the bold border on the side actually works really well with these. And then you also have some back to school cards, and the back to school cards, they also have the purple border along the side. And both of these subsets also appear in Series 2. So there were a couple of cards in Series 1 and a couple of cards in Series 2. And then they closed out Series 1 with their Tournament of America cards. This is all the players on the Dream Team, as in all 12, not just the 10, but all 12. And this was a recap of it's kind of like the preseason for the Olympics, or the regular season before the Olympics become the playoffs, that kind of a model. So regionally, there is a tournament of games that different sports have before the Olympics, which gives kind of a seeding for the Olympics, so that when the Olympics come, you have a good feel for what these teams are like, and the Olympics can build itself out to really cater to the competition in the right way. So the Tournament of Americas is the warm-up for the Dream Team, and this gives the record that the players had, etc., and it gives action shots of the Dream Team players, which is actually very rare. There are not many places that you're going to find these cards. So this little subset was a really fun little addition in this card set. And then with Series 2 is built same way as Series 1, but it's actually quite truncated. So they have all the traded players, and then the draft pick rookies, they're intermixed within the players, so they're in the teams, and they're basically just differentiated by having a gold band on the side for being a rookie. That's about the only thing that is real. Well, it says rookie, but that's the difference that they have. So instead of making a special subset looking at the lottery picks or anything like that, they just said, well, yeah, here they are, they're part of the team, so aren't you excited? Which, we were excited. But they do look pretty good. And then the only subset that was distinct to Series 2 was their trivia cards. And this was for each of the 4 main statistical leaders. So on the front is one of the players, or the player who kind of exemplifies the particular statistic that they're looking at. And then on the back is a whole series of trivia questions. And then there is an answer card which has a 4-panel shot of all 4 of those players, and then on the back it has the answer to all the trivia questions for all the cards, which gives collectors, young collectors, the opportunity to kind of get a feel for some of the aspects of these individual statistics. That's pretty cool. And that was the set. But this was not an insert-laden set. Hoops hadn't gotten to that point yet. Fleer was getting there, but Hoops hadn't quite gotten there, so they didn't really do much in that regard, but SP cards were still very popular, and boy, Hoops really got into it here. So they had SP cards showing up in Series 1 and as well as in Series 2. And the first one to talk about is actually a Magic Johnson tribute card. This is a rookie to retirement card, so on the front is a shot of him as a rookie, on the back is a shot of him retiring. It has a gold band down the side, and it's, yeah, pretty cool SP card. And then they also had a card for the Dream Team. And this Dream Team card, it also has a gold band down the side. Here it's horizontal with the portraits of the players all on the front. And on the back talks a little bit about it. So this SP card was, this was a cool subset card, or this was a cool SP card, because there was a cool quality to this rare SP card where if you found it, it really did feel like a special Dream Team card. But it wasn't nearly as impressive as the plastic card that was created that was more of an Olympics card, Dream Team card and Olympics card. This is plastic and looks like a credit card, except it's very thin, floppy plastic. It seems like it should be see-through, although it's not. And on the front of the card, it shows the Olympic torch being lit at the beginning of the games by an archer, which is just, it's one of the coolest ways that you could light a torch. And it's a very high pressure shot. I'm both excited for and feel sorry for that guy. On the card back, they have a very different portrait. I think this is the only time you see this particular portrait on a card. So it's very distinct like that. And it also gives the scores from the whole event. They also did SP cards for a couple of players. So we start off with Patrick Ewing, and the Patrick Ewing art card is actually very similar to what Fleer was doing with their Provision cards. It's a really bold move. It's a comic book theme approach that they took. I don't really know why they did it, but they did. So, okay, kudos to them for that. They also did a John Stockton Ultimate Game, and this looked at a great game John had during the playoffs, and it has a gold band down the side and another SP card. Patrick Ewing also got an Ultimate Game card. Of course, in his case, it has a blue foil band down the side. And both the Stockton and the Ewing cards can be found with autographs. Now, the autographs have the Skybox seal of approval on it, which was still very new. They were just starting to do that. But both those cards do have autograph versions of their cards. They didn't do it with Magic, and they didn't do it with the Dream Team, but they did do it with those two players. And another player that they didn't do that with was Michael Jordan or Clyde Drexler with the Chicago Bulls back-to-back championship SP card. This year, they did not make a subset of cards about the playoffs or the NBA Finals. Instead, they saved it for a single standalone SP card that is basically a back-to-back tribute. Has Michael on the front, and so that's the other SP card that they had. They also had a voucher for a draft pick set. So the lottery rookies, there was a send-away set that you could get. It comes back. Really cool looking card. This is not the kind of thing you would see with Hoops. This seems more like a Skybox card, but for Hoops, it showed that there were going to be some really good things coming. At any rate, these are the lottery pick rookies, and again, a really nice looking set. And then they had, for their insert sets, they had the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court is a small set of, basically it's like the all NBA team in a way. These are star players, and they have a wood theme, again, kind of like the rookies, but they actually have a gold band around the outside and the gold lettering on it, which makes the cards look really cool. This was a subset that they had used in 1991. So, like with the NBA Finals, where they just said, okay, we're just going to make an insert card, or an SP card, really, they did the same thing here with these cards. So instead of a subset, they did it as a very truncated insert set. They got to come up with a theme, so this is what they came up with. They also did a very small set of more Magic cards. A couple of cards looking at Magic Johnson, and that's it. That's what they did. So the inserts were still very primitive. They would have a long way to go in really building those up. But this was 1992 was that year when companies were starting to figure out that, okay, we're going to have to take inserts seriously. Hoops wasn't quite there yet, but they would be. But again, the design, the whole model that they had for this was a template for moving forward, but it was not a design template. And so the 1993 set would look way different from this. And yet, if you know what to look for, there are a lot of similarities that they do carry across. They did a good job of continuing their theme into the future, and you can actually feel the history of NBA hoops through all of these sets, which is actually pretty impressive considering how much change they made. But otherwise, this set was kind of a lull in terms of how much was in it, And yeah, there was they were definitely thinking about what was coming down the road. They just hadn't figured it out yet. But other than that, I don't think there's really anything else to talk about here with the 92-93 NBA Hoops set. So if you haven't checked out the other videos that I've done on NBA Hoops, definitely go back, check those out. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And thank you very much for watching.